Yes, my friends, we have some important updates coming out of training camp. And while we've had a solid run so far, there is one small bump in the road that we need to address. It's not great news. And before anyone panics, take a deep breath. But yes, it does involve one of our key players. Before we go any further, make sure you've hit the like button if you're a true Detroit Lions fan. So, let's get to it. I'll start with the news about Penei Sewell. During practice on Wednesday, as we prepared for the final preseason game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Sewell appeared to suffer a foot injury. It's the kind of news that immediately makes your stomach churn because this guy is a vital part of our offensive line. The Lions were holding their last big practice before the end of the preseason, giving the starters that final tune-up before Week 1 against the Los Angeles Rams. You could feel the intensity building because everyone knew this was essentially the preseason game. Head coach Dan Campbell even mentioned in his morning press conference that this was the day to prepare the starters mentally and physically for what's to come. And then, near the end of the first-team scrimmage, boom, Sewell goes down. He needed assistance from the trainers, and that's when everyone took a collective breath. Thankfully, he didn't stay down long. He made his way over to the bench, had a conversation with the trainers, and for a second it seemed like maybe it wasn't that bad. But eventually, he left the field and headed back to the locker room. After practice, the team confirmed that Sewell is dealing with a foot injury. Unfortunately, we don't know much more than that right now. Coach Campbell won't be available for comment until after the Steelers game on Saturday, so we'll likely have to wait a little longer for a detailed update. But the vibe around camp is cautious optimism. No one is hitting the panic button just yet. So, what happens next? If Sewell has to miss any time, that leaves a big question mark at right tackle. Colby Sorsdahl, the second-year offensive lineman, stepped up when Sewell went down and filled in during practice. He's been repping with the second team all camp and seems like the obvious choice to take over if Sewell can't go. But he's young, and while he's shown some promise, he's got big shoes to fill. We also have Dan Skipper, but here's the tricky part. He's dealing with his own injury. Skipper hurt his ankle during Game 2 of the preseason against the Chiefs, and he wasn't able to practice on Wednesday. The good news is, they're expecting him back next week, but we don't know if he'll be ready in time for Week 1. So, the depth at tackle suddenly becomes a bit of a concern. Rookie Giovanni Manu and the newly signed Jamarco Jones are in the mix, but let's be honest, replacing an all-pro like Sewell isn't something you can easily do. The timing of this injury isn't great. Sewell is a cornerstone of this offensive line, a line that's been one of the best in the league and a critical part of what makes this Lions team so dangerous. Losing him, even for a short period, could change the dynamic of how we approach these early games, especially against a team like the Rams, who can put serious pressure on the QB. Now, before we start spiraling into worst-case scenarios, let's remember that it's still early. We don't have the full story yet on how bad this injury is, and if there's one thing we know about this Lions team under Dan Campbell, it's that they're resilient. No one's going to fold just because one guy goes down. They've built a culture of toughness and next-man-up mentality, and if Sewell does have to miss time, I've got no doubt that whoever steps in will be ready to grind. But what do you think, Lions fans? Are you worried about the potential of starting the season without Penei Sewell? Or do you think the depth we've built can hold things down until he's back at 100%? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from you. All right, Lions fans, we've got some breaking news out of Detroit as the team makes a late move ahead of their third and final preseason game of the 2024 offseason. The Lions have just signed nickel corner Rashad Goose, bringing in some fresh competition at a crucial moment. Now, let's talk about this signing and what it could mean for the team. Goose is no stranger to the NFL, but his journey has been anything but typical. After playing his college ball at Wisconsin, he was drafted by the Buffalo Bills in the 6th round of the 2021 NFL Draft. Now, like so many late-round picks, he didn't stick with the Bills through final cuts and found himself on their practice squad. But just when it seemed like he was going to settle into that role, the New York Jets swooped in, adding him to their active roster. During his rookie season with the Jets, Goose played in 5 games, making 3 tackles. Not earth-shattering stats, but he showed potential in those limited opportunities. Fast forward to the following year, and Goose found himself on the move again. The Jets let him go during cutdowns, but the Washington Commanders saw something in him and claimed him off waivers for their 2022 campaign. That season, he appeared in 15 games and even started 3 of them in the nickel corner role. Again, the stats weren't mind-blowing, but this guy was out there grinding, proving he could hang at the NFL level. The Commanders liked him enough to give him a one-year extension in 2023, but once again, he was let go at the end of camp. And here's where things take a twist. Instead of bouncing around the league trying to find another team, Wild Goose decided to hit pause on his football career. In 2023, he pivoted to something entirely different, becoming a YouTuber. That's right, he launched his own YouTube channel focusing on short-form videos that covered a range of topics. Whether it was football-related or something else, Wild Goose showed he's got more than just talent on the field. He's got a knack for creating content too. But here's the thing. Even with this new venture, the gridiron was still calling his name. After a year away from football, Wild Goose wasn't ready to fully walk away from the game. Earlier this summer, he signed with the UFL Birmingham Stallions for their 2025 season. But that wasn't enough. He began taking tryouts with NFL teams during training camp, which ultimately led him here to Detroit, where he inked a deal with the Lions on Wednesday. So what does this mean for the Lions? Let's be real. It's going to be an uphill battle for Wild Goose to make the 53-man roster with just one practice, and at best, one preseason game to showcase his skills. But the Lions are all about depth right now, especially with the regular season approaching and the focus on staying healthy. While the starters are making their final adjustments in practice, guys like Wild Goose are getting a chance to fight for a role, even if it's just on the practice squad. That brings us to the competition. Wild Goose will likely go head-to-head with last year's undrafted free agent cornerback Stephen Gilmore, as well as Essong Bassi and Javelin Guidry, both also recently signed. These guys are all hungry for a chance, and with roster spots at a premium, the upcoming preseason game will be their last opportunity to prove they belong. Sure, Wild Goose's path may be unconventional, from the NFL to YouTube and back again, but if there's one thing we know about the Lions under Dan Campbell, it's that they love a guy who can overcome adversity and fight his way back. If Wild Goose can show some of that grit we know Coach Campbell values, he could earn a spot on the practice squad and keep his NFL dream alive for a little while longer. So, Lions fans, what do you think of this signing? Is Wild Goose the kind of underdog player you want to root for? Do you see him making an impact on the roster or the practice squad? Let me know what you think in the comments, and as always, stay tuned for more updates as we head into the final stretch of the preseason. Let's dive into some exciting news about our 2024 draft pick, Giovanni Manu. Now, when Manu first stepped onto the field in training camp, it was as tough as you'd expect for a rookie. However, GM Brad Holmes made it clear on draft night that Manu was a long-term project. Holmes compared him to last year's pick, Broderick Martin. So, Lions fans, what do you think of Giovanni Manu's development so far? Does this long-term project excite you, or do you have concerns? Let me know in the comments below.